Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that takes the lead in today's edition for Thursday, 27th February 2025, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillian Group. Barbadian Prime Minister announced major changes to her cabinet. Peter Wickham chimes in. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Barbados Mia Motley announces changes to her cabinet. Full statement on changes to the cabinet of Barbados in this CBC News item.
Good afternoon, Barbadians. Earlier today, I received a letter from the Honourable Corey Lane asking to be relieved of his ministerial responsibilities so that he may spend more time with his family and to be able to give the government the opportunity to be able to ensure that it is in no way affected by anything related to charges. He has asked that he be noted for his complete innocence in these matters, and he is entitled to that. At the same time, I received a letter from the Honourable Marcia Cadell asking to be relieved of her duties with immediate effect. I have therefore accordingly informed Her Excellency President of Barbados, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, of changes that become effective tomorrow, February 26. I've asked the Honourable Kirk Humphrey to take responsibility as Minister of People Empowerment and Elderly Affairs for the task now of crime prevention. This will in fact sit well with his ministry, which has already taken responsibility for parental coaches and life coaches, and for whom the issue of social empowerment is central, and that is the centre of crime prevention. I have equally asked the Honourable Kay McConney to assume responsibility for the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment as full minister. This will allow her to be able to undertake these hefty responsibilities, particularly as we move to a BERT 3.0 program, a Barbados Economic Recovery Transformation 3.0, as we come to the end of our IMF program at the end of June, and therefore we need to ensure that we lay the platform for sustainable growth and development. I have asked the Honourable Chad Blackman to assume responsibility for the Ministry of Educational Transformation, which will focus on pre-primary, primary and secondary education. I have asked the Honourable Sandra Husbands to assume responsibility for Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, recognizing that government would wish to put all of its training programs in one, those from the Ministry of Public Service, those from the National Transformation Initiative, all of those previously in the Ministry of Education, so that the country can undertake a massive program for the upskilling of our people. I've said over and over that our responsibilities towards having skills for the requisite task of building out this country is the thing that keeps me up at night, not balance of payments or indeed debt anymore, as was the case when we first took office. I've also asked Mr. Jonathan Reid to assume responsibility as Minister of Innovation, Industry, Science and Technology. Mr. Reid previously served as my Chief of Staff and is therefore well familiar with all of these issues and programs and can hit the ground running. To accommodate Mr. Reid's appointment, I've asked, and she has agreed, Dr. Crystal Haynes to be able to allow us to manage the exigencies of these appointments, and therefore Mr. Reid will replace her as a senator in the Honourable Senate of the Barbados Parliament. I want to thank the Honourable Corey Lane, the Honourable Marcia Cadell, and indeed Dr. Crystal Haynes for their service to the Government of Barbados, and wish them all the very best, and as they continue to work with us in a collegial framework as we go forward in mission transformation and indeed in the building of our resilience at a time that is most difficult for the world. We are facing a number of grave uncertainties, and therefore our ability to stay focused and to get the job done is uppermost in our minds. I want to thank you and look forward to working with all of you as we stay focused on that journey. Thank you.
Political analyst Peter Wickham, meantime, weighs in on the cabinet changes. Take a listen.
Now, following this announcement, we know there will be many questions that you have. So joining us live for his take on these surprising cabinet changes is political analyst Peter Wickham. Mr. Wickham, thanks for joining us, first of all.
Hi, Tisha. Good to be with you. Interesting afternoon in politics.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts initially on these changes?
Yeah, I mean, there's several thoughts. I think one to start firstly with the Marcia Caddell's decline. One could say her decision to step down from cabinet. As I understand it, it was her decision. I think it's regrettable to the extent that I personally thought that she was a good minister and she was a superior intellect that the government of Barbados and the Barbados Labour Party benefited from. This is not the first time she has opted out of cabinet. It's the second time, and I suspect that her path back to political centrality will be a lot more difficult this time around. So for me, that is some level of disappointment. And as Prime Minister wished her well, I also wish her well in terms of what future she has. My sense is that she has given a commitment to the Barbados Labour Party, and I think that the likelihood of her moving from there is quite low. So she will now join Sonia, former Minister of Health, on the backbench, and I think that the two of them will be people who have an interest in politics, a commitment to the BLP, but are just not frontline ministers at this point in time. The other interesting development would be Corey Lane. Corey Lane is one could say a young Turk in politics, and I think he has a bright future. He too has asked to be relieved of his responsibilities, and I think it's important that we note that both of those persons have asked to step down as opposed to being fired. And I think that his decision to focus on his family at this point in time is something that's also quite commendable. It saves the Barbados Labour Party from having to deal with questions of whether or not it is being hypocritical. He has not been charged with anything, but nonetheless, he's been interviewed by the police, and the argument could be put that it is useful that the police be given a free hand to have a full investigation, raise whatever questions they have, and for him to be able to defend himself. And I think that it's also commendable that he's taken a mature decision politically to say, look, let me step back. And there will be a point in time in the future, I'm sure, when he will step forward again. There's
also been a new appointment in Jonathan Reid, who's coming from working within the Prime Minister's ministry to taking on a senatorial position and moving into a ministry. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. Jonathan Reid is not well known to the public. I certainly don't know the individual. I've not met him more than once, and I think that we now will have to get to know him better. I don't think that Jonathan Reid is a political aspirant in the future. I don't expect to see him running for a seat. It sounds to me like a technical appointment where he has a specific technical task to do, and he will now do that as a minister. Certainly congratulations to him as a young person who seems relatively new to politics. And I think that he will approach the task in somewhat more of a technical way. And I think that is essentially the way that I appear to be pitched. I don't think that he politically is expecting to run for a seat in the next election. I don't expect to see his name appearing on any list like that. But, government from time to time will need to build up the capacity in terms of technical expertise, people who are not political, but they will need to call upon in that regard. The other interesting development would be the promotion of Senator Chad Blackman, who appears to be one of the rising stars in politics. He has now been given a pretty heavy lift in the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education is a place that political aspirants can grow. Prime Minister Motley was there. Deputy Prime Minister Santia Bradshaw was there. He's now been given that awesome responsibility. It's a whole lot of money to spend, and it's a whole lot of responsibility. And I wish him well, but certainly it is a heavy lift for him as a minister now coming into his own, coming out of the office of the Prime Minister and taking on that responsibility. The question as to why the current minister, the former Minister of Education, was removed, I think is a reasonable question that people will ask. To my mind, Prime Minister Motley has appeared to change major ministers within the 5-year period that she has been in office. And already we've seen health, foreign affairs, transport and works. All of those ministries have changed. I suspect the only reason why education hasn't been changed so far is because there have been so many people calling for her head in the opposition, and the Prime Minister naturally would not want to give the impression that the opposition is running the government. So I think that the opportunity was taken to do what was done in relation to some other ministries, essentially to take a fresh guard and to give someone else an opportunity to do the lifting in education. And we wish him well we wish her well in her new portfolio, which appears to be something similar to what she would have done in the past before she became Education Minister.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your opinion with us.
My pleasure.
Political analyst Peter Wickham.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick in association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
In another item out of Barbados, it is time for Barbados to further reconnect with African continent. The suggestion from Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Senator Chad Blackman. He said the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Economic Affairs in Barbados now have to create the regulatory and other frameworks necessary for the island to realize the benefits. The minister said Barbados has repositioned itself as a logistical hub, and the Togolese have expressed a willingness to help the island get up to speed.
It is really now about unlocking that partnership like we've never done before. And as I can tell you, the tremendous excitement, certainly on government's behalf. And when you move around the country, people say, you know what, now is the time for us to really rekindle our lineage with Africa. Not just in an emotional sentiment, because of course that's where we're from, but now doing it in a way that brings tremendous success and opportunity to Barbadians, and equally on the reverse side, to Togolese. And how do you build that out? Through partnerships, through technical cooperation where necessary. They're also into smart manufacturing on a large scale, exporting into the rest of Africa and the world. Barbados, of course, is now trying to position itself as not a large manufacturer, but also a smart manufacturer using technology as well. So therefore, a lot of these skill sets that they've had and experiences that they've had, we must now look to see how we can incorporate that, particularly in the advent of artificial intelligence. How do we now reimagine, how do we do these things in a short period of time, but lending to efficiencies and delivery for the public. And I see this visit as one that allows for us to chart a new path of growth and development, particularly as we continue to build out our economy.
In other news, Larry Lala, senior counsel, has resigned from the United National Congress, but says he will find ways to serve the country. Last year, Lala unsuccessfully challenged for the post of party chairman under the Rushton Parry-led United Patriots slate. At least one political party is not ruling out extending an olive branch to the attorney at law. CNC3's Jesse Ramdio explains.
After a 13-year tenure, attorney at law Larry Lala SC is parting ways with the United National Congress. In a letter to party chairman Dave Tanko on Monday, Lala said after unsuccessfully advocating for internal reform within the party, he could no longer endeavor in it. A move in the midst of a general election was sure to send off alarm bells, which Lala was quick to address.
I have not been approached by any party, but I'll continue to find ways to serve my country because, it's important that we try everything possible to make Trinidad and Tobago a better place.
Prior to becoming an official UNC member, Lala campaigned with the party for the Tunapuna constituency since 1995. UNC political leader Kamla Prasad-Bisesa says Lala was within his rights to fulfill his personal political ambitions elsewhere and wished him well. And while Lala's political aspirations have since been severed with the UNC, leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Gary Griffith, is not shutting him out.
When individuals like that decide to leave, but they still wish to serve, if that happened, and there's still a desire for them to contribute politically, the doors will always be open for the National Transformation Alliance to have discussions with such individuals.
Griffith says his eyes are on those disconnecting from the UNC and how it can affect the party at the upcoming polls. Jesse Ramdale, CNC3 News.
A Kenyan police officer deployed to Haiti to assist in combating violent gangs was killed during a confrontation with one of the gangs, according to Kenyan officials on Sunday. Africa News has more.
The incident occurred in Atibonite region, where Kenyan forces were engaged in operations to address gang violence. The Kenyan mission reported that the officers were responding to a request for assistance from residents in Ponsonde. The officer was airlifted for medical treatment but succumbed to his injuries, as stated by Godfrey Otunge, the commander of the Kenyan contingent in Haiti. Kenya has deployed hundreds of officers to support Haiti's struggling law enforcement, with an additional 200 officers arriving in February to join over 600 already present as part of a multinational force that includes personnel from Jamaica, Guatemala, and El Salvador.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.